Hello, my name is Ted Hulsey. I'm Vice President of Marketing with eFolder and your host for today's event. Welcome to this special eFolder webinar. We are pleased to announce that eFolder has acquired Anchor, a fast-growing provider of file sync and share solutions designed specifically for MSPs. Today we are joined by Kevin Hoffman, eFolder's CEO, and Bryan Forrester, Vice President and General Manager from Anchor. First, let me cover a few housekeeping items. Today's session is being recorded. The recorded version of this webinar will be made available on eFolder's YouTube channel. We will also make copies of the slides available to those who attended the event. With over 417 people registered for today's session, we have put all participants in listen-only mode. You can enjoy the audio portion of today's event by either streaming it to your computer or by dialing in over the phone. Questions are strongly encouraged throughout today's webinar. We have planned a special Q&A section at the end of today's discussion, but you may submit them as we go along, and we will try to address your questions on the fly. Now let me introduce today's speakers. Kevin Hoffman is CEO and CTO of eFolder. He has been involved with eFolder in various roles since the very early days. Kevin has a PhD in computer science from Purdue and lives in the Denver area with his wife and 2-year-old daughter. Bryan Forrester is the general manager and co-founder of Anchor. He is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the business unit. Previously, as director of sales at Quest Software's network management division, he led the worldwide sales efforts for the Foglight product line. Bryan has extensive background working in the channel and has held sales and management positions in SonicWall, PacketTrap, and Kaseya. Kevin and Bryan, take it away.
Okay, well, thanks, Ted. This is Kevin here. We welcome everyone, both eFolder partners, Anchor partners, and anyone else in the channel. We're excited to form this partnership with Anchor. There's a lot of synergies involved in the two companies. It made a lot of sense together, and we're excited just to tell you more about it. And first, we're going to give you a brief background of the two companies here. If you want to progress to the next slide there, Bryan. So eFolder key facts, we've been around for a while, 2002, headquartered in Atlanta. We have just over 55 people, over 1,250 partners, and our mission is to provide peace of mind by protecting business productivity, whether that's proactively, through backup and disaster recovery type services, or we're providing productivity services directly now with the Anchor product line. There's many ways in which we can serve the channel and help channel partners put them with us. So here's a brief overview of our management team. All these people have been with eFolder for a while, most of these since 2005 or before. You've got myself, George is leading up sales and operations, Bill Gross, our CFO, who's a CPA, Ted Hulsey, whom you know is VP Marketing, and Jan Spring, our face of the channel and VP Channel Development. So real brief description of the different product lines eFolder has in production today. We've got our two BDR product lines, one based around Dell Aperture, the other based around StorageCraft Shadow Protect. We've got our own cloud backup and disk-to-disk backup of just file-level backup product. We now have the Anchor product and then the eFolder Continuity Cloud that allows people to virtualize their backups in our cloud in a rapid fashion to give their customers cloud disaster recovery as a service.
Hi, everybody. This is Bryan with Anchor. Very excited to announce this acquisition and become part of the eFolder family. I just wanted to launch into a few key facts about Anchor and give everybody on the phone who's not familiar with Anchor a little background. So Anchor was founded in 2011, March of 2011 to be exact, and currently has about 23 people on staff. Our product is a file sync, file share, and data collaboration platform built for private cloud or SaaS deployment options. So our partners can either host it themselves or they can host it now in the eFolder cloud. Anchor has north of 350 partners worldwide, so combined with eFolder, there's now north of 1,600 partners in the combined company. Anchor leadership team, all comes from a very deep channel background. Myself, I've been working in the channel for it seems almost 8 years now, working at various companies like Packet-Trap, Quest, Dell, Kaseya, SonicWall, and several others. And in fact, before any of those, I actually worked for an MSP, so I know the channel pretty well. Dave Burnett, our CTO and Vice President of Technology, comes from actually a gaming background. He's actually built a lot of online interactive gaming companies, and he was one of the founders of a company called Lasso Logic that was acquired by SonicWall. That was a continuous data protection solution. Pierre Tapia is our VP of products, and really leads the vision of where the product's headed and what are the key features that are going to continue to help our product grow and give our partners the platform they need to go out and sell this successfully as a service. And A.K. Kapoor is our VP of sales. He, like myself, has worked in many large companies and startups leading channel sales efforts. So today, there's a big challenge in this market, specifically the file sync and data collaboration and file sharing market, right? In today's world, what we know is this. A lot of small businesses are moving more and more of their data into cloud services, whether that's things like Office 365 or hosted Exchange or Google Docs or more web-based applications like Salesforce. And so what they're doing is, as they move their data to the cloud, at the same time they're becoming more distributed. A lot of small businesses have more employees working from home, more people on the road, more people in the field on their mobile phones or on their tablets, and they want to have access to their data cross-platform. So it's not just that the world's becoming more cloud-based. Businesses are becoming more distributed, and networks look very different with the whole proliferation of mobile technology. So you see a bunch of vendors out there, products like Dropbox, SkyDrive, Google Drive, and we really identify those products as more consumer apps that are, really good solutions if you're sharing family photos, but become more problematic in business environments. So this public cloud poses a lot of challenges for small businesses that are concerned about security risks and controlling what their employees can do with the company data. Data leaks, no visibility, and most importantly, from an MSP's perspective, no IT control, right? If your customers are using Dropbox, you have very little control over what their employees can do with the data, and they're now using a service that you really cannot manage for them. So these solutions pose major challenges to channel partners. With Anchor, I don't know if you want to take this slide, Kevin.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was just going to say, we see this combined vision for the synergies with the Anchor software plus the eFolder storage cloud to form this solution. Where we're able to deliver a fully managed cloud service to channel partners profitably. So this slide sort of depicts the main use cases of the product. Yeah, Brian, if you wanted to go over the use cases there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's many ways for channel partners to take advantage of the Anchor technology. There's a lot of pain points that Anchor can solve for the small business companies. Whether it's, and I'll get into this more in the product demo, but Anchor provides a lot of features that are very important, not just to business owners, but to, more specifically, MSPs. Because Anchor built its technology from the ground up for MSPs, we share a lot of synergies with the eFolder business model and the eFolder products that they sell. Anchor, for example, is a multi-tenant solution, which means that partners can manage all their customers through a single UI. But more importantly, at a high level, we're solving the pain point of how companies can share large files, not just internally, but with external third-party clients. We're getting rid of old kind of antiquated and cumbersome ways of accessing and sharing data like VPN or FTP, and we're really changing the way that people access and share data and collaborate on files that they're working on. And as I'll get into more later on in the product demo, security is a big part of this as well. If you've got customers that are currently using products like a Dropbox or a SkyDrive or a Google Drive. I mean, there's a lot of ways to position Anchor, mostly because now, you can manage the service for your customers, whereas those other products are very difficult to manage. And this integrates nicely with, the other piece of the puzzle in terms of business continuity. eFolder provides the disaster recovery solution set that Anchor doesn't provide. So combined with eFolder, we can now fully offer a suite of products that provides full business continuity. And if we look at a competitive positioning of Anchor compared to Dropbox or Box, I mean, it's important to point out the advantages that we have to these common vendors. As I'll talk to in a minute, file server enablement is a huge feature that really allows partners to change the way that their customers access their network resources and their data. HIPAA compliant, right? I mean, as many of you on the phone know, and many of you on the phone are probably work with, customers in the medical industry. HIPAA laws are changing this year, and if your customers are using products like some of the vendors listed here, HIPAA compliance has to be a major concern, right? Are you meeting those requirements with your business associate agreements? Channel-only business model, right? Anchor and eFolder are completely focused on helping MSPs grow their business and creating deeper revenue streams for your business. Do vendors like Dropbox and Box fully appreciate that? Do they understand the model? And are they selling direct to end users? And how is that interfering with what you guys do on a day-to-day basis? In multi-tenancy, centralized management, the Anchor solution is also deeply brandable. You can white label the whole thing. And as I'll get to in more detail, PSA and RMM integration is a big piece of this as well.
So I just wanted to, sort of describe the different pieces that we saw in these two companies and our solutions and what we've got, and what it means for the channel, why we thought it was a big win for the channel at large and ourselves and everybody really. So, if you want to progress here, Brian. So, first, Anchor, what we saw in Anchor, had an incredible product with MSP-focused IP. They had some pretty impressive sales momentum given their age. We were looking at this market for a while, and it was clear that this was a big opportunity both for ourselves and the channel and them selling to their end users. So that was impressive that a young company was able to rapidly capture that so quickly. Anchor's R&D process is quite rapid and mature. They have mature development processes and QA processes that allow them to release every couple of weeks, for minor releases and every couple of months for major releases. And that's something that we felt was really important, and we're going to actually increase investment in R&D to make sure that continues to accelerate, and that the platform is rapidly being enhanced to meet the needs of the MSPs. That will always be ahead of the curve, meeting your needs. There was immediate synergy with eFolder Cloud. The two backends worked quite well together. And then, their management team deeply understands the channel. We didn't have to retrain the DNA of their company to target the channel and work with the channel that was already built in. On the eFolder side, we've got this huge cloud infrastructure that we built up ourselves. We've been operating since 2005. Many, many petabytes of storage. A proven account management team that understands how to help our channel grow their businesses and do marketing and sales plans. We're able to effectively help partners consolidate vendors onto our platform, and we seem to have a good reputation in the channel for the reliable cloud services we built up. So, in our view, you combine these two pieces and you bring to the channel something that's easy to sell, easy to use, easy to consume, and something that the end users are going to like, and everyone's going to make some profit and money together here.
Hey,
so this also.
Kevin, I think let me ask a question because there's a couple that have come up in the same topic. Kurt wants to know what is going to happen to MSPs like ourselves who host in our own data center, and I'm presuming Kurt's an existing Anchor partner and uses the private cloud option. Can you talk a little bit about our plans there?
Yeah, so this is actually a great slide to be on for that question. eFolder is a very open platform strategy, and to give MSPs the tools that they need to fit their business model. And so the Anchor private cloud model is definitely going to continue. It's going to be developed just as aggressively as eFolder's own cloud offering, hosting the Anchor software. We think that was one of the big advantages that the Anchor product had over other competing products, is that it's so easy to run in your own cloud if the MSP felt that was better for their business. There's many MSPs becoming cloud service providers themselves. There's geographies where it's difficult to move data across boundaries. There's customers who refuse to move the data outside of their boundaries but still want the benefits of cloud file sync. And so, we think this is a huge advantage for partners to have the flexibility to sell the public cloud version or the private cloud version, whether it's the customer or themselves hosting that private cloud. And you can do both. You don't have to do one or the other. And this fits into eFolder's broad strategy of, let's build solutions. Let's build a whole family of solutions for channel partners, where they can do anything data storage, data protection related in the channel using the best-of-breed tools. So we have partnerships today with Aperture and StorageCraft. We've added Anchor to our product line, and there's many additional exciting partnerships coming soon. With tools that MSPs seem to favor, where eFolder can add value by integrating with these environments, making it easy to cloud monitor and cloud manage, all built on top of our cloud. And so that's our broad vision, and it fits in quite well with that.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Ted, was there additional questions?
Yeah. So let's tackle a handful of other questions from the audience. Bryan wants to know, is the Anchor Cloud now in eFolder's data centers, or will it be moved there?
It's not there yet, but we're actively going to be moving it soon. We think it'll take less than a month, but the exact timeline isn't known yet. It is fairly straightforward to migrate. The migration will be transparent to all users, so you won't have to do anything on your side, and we'll make some announcements when that's moved.
Okay, and then Trey wants to know, how will the day-to-day operations of Anchor change, if at all? Development, contact, support, pricing, etc.
So Bryan, if you wanted to tackle that, the short answer is there's no change for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, one of the reasons that Anchor was so excited about doing this deal with eFolder is because we saw that eFolder saw that our model was working, and they didn't want to change the old adage, if it's not broke, don't fix it. They don't want to change something that's working really well. The only thing that I will say is that it's only going to enhance our current customers' experience with the product, because eFolder is dedicated to investing a lot of resources into our product line. From a DevOps standpoint, we're hiring a lot of resources in development and support, and we're going to be adding more and more post-sales resources, so our partners have the collateral to help them go out and sell this as a service. And so it's only going to enhance that experience for our current customers, and we're going to have even more resources than we had before. So in terms of the day-to-day operations of Anchor, nothing changes. Our brand is staying the same, our pricing model staying the same, and it's the same product roadmap. It's the same strategy as before.
Yeah, this is Kevin here. Just to add to that, we recognize that change and sudden change, especially for partners, is very disruptive to your business. And so it's really important to us to make things as easy for partners as possible, making few changes and making changes slowly over time. And then eFolder is adding these resources on the back end to make the experience even better. ultimately, over a long period of time, our systems will become tightly integrated, but that'll happen in such a way that's not disruptive to your businesses.
Okay, there's another question. It says, this is from Bryan, and he says, I've seen references that indicate the Anchor offering will include much more storage space. Will existing Anchor partners be getting more storage?
Yeah, somebody got information early, but that's actually correct. I mean, one advantage as we migrate our data into the eFolder cloud is that we can offer, because eFolder has such large infrastructure resources, we can offer prices very low because of economies of scale. So each of our pricing tiers, if anything, the only thing that's changing on our pricing model is that there's 2 or 3 times more storage included than before. So that's something that partners can get very excited about. And of course, after this call, as we engage with different eFolder partners, we're happy to go into details on that pricing with you.
Okay, and let's take one. We'll handle one more question and then go into the demo. This one is probably for Kevin. Stephen wants to know, does eFolder have a Canadian data center? We are currently hosting the Anchor solution with our own Canadian cloud provider.
Yeah, so our Canadian data center is that project is nearly finished. The site is going to be in Kelowna. We chose a site that had Tier 4 power infrastructure and yet was away from many of the major Canadian cities. And so one of the few locations that meets that criteria is Kelowna. It's going to be probably a month before we have equipment in stress testing there, and then another month before production. So by the end of this year, for sure, we're going to have our own official data center presence there in Canada.
Okay, that's keep the questions coming in, but let's hop into the demo, and we'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end of our formal remarks. Take it away, Bryan.
Great, thanks, Ted. And again, usually I go through these demos and it can take 45 minutes, so I'm going to try to condense this and really go over some of the what I believe are the key features of Anchor, some of the key selling points. But at the end of the call, if you guys want to learn more or want me to dive deeper in different areas, we can get one of our sales reps to go through it with you. But Anchor, again, from the very first line of code, was designed for MSPs. So it's really important to point out that the main fundamental difference between Anchor and some of these other vendors out there that we've mentioned already, is that Anchor is not typically sold as a product. It's not resold as a product. I mean, we do have VARs that we sell to who resell it to their larger customers, but typically Anchor is offered as a service, right? It's delivered to the end user as a service. So it's a little bit different in terms of the architecture and design of the software. I mean, again, number one that you'll realize as you look at the UI here in one of our demo environments, Anchor is a multi-tenant system. So again, all of the customers that you work with, all of the customers can be treated as separate organizations and can be managed through a single pane of glass. Anchor also can be white labeled, right? And everything can be rebranded by the MSP, not just the web UI and certainly not just the reports that you send to your customers, but the local agents on your customers' Windows PCs or their MacBooks, even the splash screens on their mobile devices, their iPads and their Android phones. Everything can be white labeled by the MSP. And at a high level, you can think of Anchor as having 2 different sides of the product, right? There's the admin view where the administrators go in and they can manage all of their customers. This is where you set up, settings, policies on backups. You can schedule reports. You can set up alerts and, team shares. So again, this is where the MSP and the engineers that work for the MSP are going in and administrating the customers. Typically, the small business employee wouldn't have access to this view. The other side of the product is the sort of end-user portal, right? What would the typical employee see when they log into Anchor? So again, this is a pretty dumbed-down UI, right? There's not a lot, it's made more simplistic for the end user who may not be as tech-savvy. Many of you on the phone have probably used products like Dropbox or SkyDrive before. In fact, you can see I have Dropbox installed on my computer here. And one thing that's nice about Dropbox is that it's really easy to use, right? It's hard to argue that Dropbox is overly complex, and as an MSP, you certainly don't want to be introducing complex solutions to your customers. So we wanted to emulate that, ease of use, at least from the end user's perspective. And in my system tray next to Dropbox, you'll notice there's an Anchor Sync agent. And the client itself looks pretty similar to Dropbox. Again, that's by design. If I create a file here, at a high level, it works a lot like Dropbox. We can call this eFolder demo. And this file that I create is syncing up into the Anchor cloud. It's not just on my local hard drive, right? And if I make changes to this document, right, these changes are continuously syncing up into the cloud, right? So we're capturing each of these changes as file revisions and using an rsync algorithm to continuously sync those changes up into the cloud. So the green checkbox means on this file that the file is not just on my local PC's hard drive, that it's actually in the cloud environment as well. So in fact, I'm back in the browser now. I'm not on my local hard drive. I'm not in the local client. And you can see that the eFolder demo document is there, right? It's in the cloud, which of course means it's on I can access the file on my phone. It's on my MacBook computer at home. It's instantaneously available across platforms. So it's not just backing up the data, right? It's propagating across platforms. And when I right-click on any document here in the web view, you can see different menu options. One of those options, for example, is revisions. So you can actually see the revisions I just made to that eFolder demo doc, and you can restore those revisions from any point in time. In fact, Anchor will retain revisions for as long as the MSP specifies in the policy. So if you want to retain revision history on files for a year, you can certainly set that up in the policy to do so. Another big advantage here and a huge pain point we solve for customers is being able to share very large files with internal users and third parties. Right? I can right-click on any folder or any file here and share it with external users. If this eFolder demo file was 1 gigabyte in size, I obviously couldn't send it over email. But if I can send it to users, if I can send a recipient a 1 gig file in 2 seconds by just clicking on my mouse a few times, there's really no use case to ever use FTP again, right? I'm not sending an email attachment. I'm sending a secure link to that recipient through email. In fact, I can put an expiration date on that link, so if I don't want the recipient to be able to access the content after a certain time, they're restricted from doing so. I can limit how many times the user can download the file. So if they forward it on to somebody else that I don't want accessing the file, that user won't be able to download the file because it's already hit that download limit. And in fact, I can be notified when the user downloads the document. So notifications on when the files I'm sending are being opened. It's a great sales tool, by the way, as well, and a lot of use cases. Anchor also has the whole concept of guest user accounts built in. A guest user is somebody, usually a third-party client that you want to send data to, but you want to password protect the link that you're sending. You don't want that user to be able to access the content without having a username and password and login. And having guest users also allow the users to edit the files and upload them back into the Anchor system, all without having a full user account credential. There's a lot of use cases this solves, right? I mean, think about the tax attorney that's got huge tax contracts to send to their third-party clients. The problem is those tax contracts are 200 megs. They can't send them over email. Anchor allows them to send those contracts to their third-party clients. The clients can countersign the documents and send them back to the attorneys in a matter of minutes. So a lot of use cases this solves. And again, if you're talking about sharing data, a lot of your customers are probably not going to want to log into a web browser every time they want to share one of their files in the cloud. It's worth pointing out that Anchor also has an Outlook plugin, so your customers can share data directly from Outlook, right? And they can attach files here, or folders. And again, these can be 5 gigabytes. The recipient is receiving a link, not an email attachment. So a lot of use cases this solves. And again, a huge advantage of Anchor is that we log all the activity. You'll remember a few minutes ago I created a file called the eFolder demo. Well, that was logged. Every time I edit a file, it's logged. If a user deletes a file, it's logged. And if a user shares a file with a third-party recipient, that activity can be logged. So think about that from an auditing perspective, from a tracking perspective, from a compliance perspective, right? If your customers are using Dropbox, they have no idea what their employees are doing with the data. There's very little log activity. So who are their employees sharing data with? When are they deleting files? There's no accountability and there's no audit trail of that. And for those of you familiar with a lot of these other sync consumer apps out there, like Dropbox, but a lot of them work this way. If you want to sync a file to the cloud using Dropbox, the file or the folder has to exist in the Dropbox folder, in the Dropbox directory. That means you have to drag the content into Dropbox in order for the file to sync to the cloud. Well, Anchor works a lot differently. First of all, the design of the Anchor client is fundamentally different than these other tools. Number one, Anchor runs as a service, so it's continuously running in the background. You don't have to be logged into the machine for Anchor to be working. And because of how it was built to scale, Anchor can be installed not just on desktop, laptops, and mobile devices. You can actually install the Anchor client on a local file server. Of course, most of you on the phone have customers with local file servers. And even though they may be moving more and more of their data to the cloud, they may like having local access to their data. They don't want to get rid of their local file server. And you've gone in and you've set up your network shares and the NTFS security permissions, and your customers are used to accessing their data through their map drives when they're on the network. Well, the great news about Anchor is that we've designed a feature called File Server Enablement, where your customers can actually keep their local file server in place. And what you can do with Anchor is you can actually replicate any folder or subfolder into the Anchor cloud. So the data is still on their local file server, but now you have a copy in the cloud that you're mapping to different security groups in Anchor. We call those security groups team shares. And they work very similarly to NTFS rights on a file server. But essentially what you're doing here is you're giving your customers cross-platform access to their data, their network data via the cloud. Whether they're on their phone, their iPad, or their computer at home, they can now access all their network data securely via the cloud. So why would they ever use VPN again, right? They wouldn't. They wouldn't need to. They have better, better performance, better reliability, and really better security to that data. But for the employees that are in the office, nothing changes, right? They access their data like they always have through their map drive. So this feature alone is a huge selling point to a lot of our partners, because obviously in a world where there may be more tablets than PCs on your customer's network, VPN is not the most elegant solution. And real quick, and again, I'm trying to go through this fast, so we have plenty of time for questions here. I just want to walk everybody on the phone through the process of a new company in Anchor, because really what it comes down to is the ability to manage services for your customers. The last thing you want as an MSP is your customer using services that you cannot manage or control for them, right? Which is exactly what they're doing when they're going out and using not just consumer products, but products like, Box or Ignite, which can be very expensive. It's very hard for you to manage those products as a service. So that is really cutting into your profit margins and your revenue stream when they use those products. With Anchor, when you're onboarding a new customer, one of the first things you're going to do when you're creating an organization is you're going to set up a policy for that customer. For example, how much storage do you want that customer to have? A terabyte, 2 terabytes, a petabyte, right? That's up to you. It probably depends how big the customer is and probably how much they're paying you. You might not want them to be able to sync up AVIs or JPEGs or movie files to the cloud, right? Because that has nothing to do with their business. Why would you let those file types take up unneeded bandwidth resources or disk space? You may not want certain users within an organization being able to erase file revision history. In fact, as part of your SLA to your customer, it may require that you retain data for a year, right? You may not want, Anchor to erase files at all for a year, or you might not want certain users to be able to share files with third-party clients. So the policies really have a lot to do with controlling what users can and cannot do in the system. Another really important thing to point out is that Anchor has bandwidth throttling controls. You can actually control how much bandwidth takes over your customer's churn at different times of the day. So a lot of people don't realize this, but products like Dropbox and SkyDrive, they can take up a lot of bandwidth. Dropbox itself takes up 7 times more bandwidth on the World Wide Web than YouTube does. It's the biggest bandwidth hog of any web-based application. So having bandwidth control over the data that's going over the wire is a huge selling point as well, and great in terms of control. Anchor natively integrates with Active Directory. Of course, most of you have customers that are on domains, and if you've got a customer with 50 users, it can be a painful experience to have to manually go in and create a username and password for every employee at that company, right? That might take you hours. The great news is with Anchor, because we natively integrate with not just Windows AD, but any LDAP system, you can set up that customer with 50 employees in less than a minute, because you can import all their credentials from their domain controller into the Anchor cloud. Your customers are logging into Anchor with the same credentials they log into their computers with every single day, right? So single sign-on, pass-through authentication, right? Easier for you to deploy, of course. Certainly easier for your customers to use and less calls to your help desk, and easier for you to manage. If your customer changes their domain password, it'll automatically change their password in the Anchor cloud as well. So again, continuous LDAP integration, not just a one-time import of AD credentials. Again, what we find is that 70% of MSPs in the channel use a ticketing or help desk system to centralize their billing and their ticketing, and many of those users use Autotask or ConnectWise. It's worth pointing out that Anchor natively integrates with Autotask and ConnectWise. So for those of you on the phone that are using these systems, I mean, any organization that you're managing in Anchor can be mapped to those same organizations in Autotask or ConnectWise. Right. Very important to also point out that any alert, activity log, any event that occurs in Anchor can create a ticket in your PSA system. And we also have an open API. It's important to note that if any of you have developers on staff, a lot of our partners leverage our API and the access we give you to the database tables to integrate things on your own web page, right, and to work with the product to integrate with other tools that you use. I already mentioned, of course, that Anchor can be completely branded. One thing I forgot to mention, though, is that you can actually brand per company. In some cases, you may not want to use your brand and icon and logo, right? You want to use your customer's brand and icon and logo. So any user that logs into Anchor under their organization, in this case, their entire experience of the product will be branded by them. And if your customers are using SkyDrive or Dropbox, and they decide that they want to fire an employee, it becomes a big problem, right? Because that employee is using Dropbox. They've got the company data not just on his work computer, he's got it on his home computer, he's got it on his tablet, he's got it on his smartphone. How does that company recover their data from the user's devices when they let him or her go? They can't, right? There's no way to do that. And so that's viewed as a pretty big security flaw. In fact, that's the catalyst for why a lot of partners call us in the first place. Our customers were using Dropbox when they realized they can't do remote wipes, and they realize the risk of using these tools now. We need to give them an alternative. But, we're not going to give them SharePoint because we want to give them something simple. Well, with Anchor, one click of the mouse, the MSP can remove all the files from the user's machines, and the apps will uninstall. Right? Remote wiping capability is just one of many security features to point to with Anchor. Not to mention things like two-factor authentication support, multiple methods of two-factor authentication, encryption, password complexity enforcement, and many more. Those are big, important security features when we're talking about the product. Now, there's a lot more I want to talk about. Team shares is a huge concept of Anchor, and how you can actually restrict what users can access data, and not just what users can access the data, but what machines they can access the data from. Anchor also supports WebDAV, so you can actually map a drive on any user's machine directly to the Anchor cloud, because in some cases you might have very large folders, a folder with 100 gigs of data. You don't want that showing up on the customer's local PC, but you can create a map drive so they can access it through Windows Explorer. They don't have to log into a web browser. Right. Again, Anchor has extensive reporting capabilities, mostly just because we collect all the metrics that are monitored in the system. Things like how many users you're managing, how many machines you're managing per organization, space usage by extension, bandwidth consumption over time. So a lot of these can be set into automated schedules reports. Obviously there's extensive alerting capabilities in Anchor. And on top of this, Anchor is also a backup solution where you can back up any folder on any user's machines. But because this is a condensed demo, I'm not going to go too deep on these features. It's just a couple things to point out here. Again, just to review, there's a lot of solutions in this market. There's consumer products like Dropbox and SkyDrive, and there's, enterprise solutions like Box and SharePoint, right? Consumers generally don't use SharePoint. It's usually used by business. But the problem with all of these solutions, and they all have their own challenges, the consumer solutions, how do you make money from it? How do you make money when your customers use Dropbox? That's the biggest, one of the biggest problems. It's not a profitable service offering, right? But more importantly than the income, that is you're not generating from these solutions, is that your customers are now using a product directly from a vendor and a service directly from a vendor that you cannot manage for them. It's not compliant, doesn't have the security settings you want. And I think probably most importantly of all, it doesn't have the control, right? The control over what users can do in the system, who can access what files, ensuring that the wrong data doesn't fall into the wrong employee's hands, right? And if your customer has an issue, you can actually troubleshoot it for them effectively because you're using a tool that allows you to, right? And why eFolder, again, just real quickly with the enterprise solutions like Box and SharePoint, while they may be more feature-rich and they may be more scalable, they can be difficult to use. They can be pretty expensive. If you're looking at the enterprise version of Box, it costs north of $35 a user per month. It's very expensive. Of course, these vendors, don't have a channel focus. 90% of their business is direct to end user companies, and so they haven't built features like a multi-tenant interface that most MSPs would want. And again, I talked through a lot of the security. It's important to mention as we migrate our data over to the eFolder infrastructure and the eFolder cloud, there's a lot of benefits that go along with that, right? Having a PCI-compliant data center, a HIPAA-compliant data center, SAS 70, SSAE certified. So if you're using our SaaS model, you have all the added benefits, not just from a software layer, but from an infrastructure layer as well. But why did eFolder, at the end of the day, acquire Anchor? And Kevin can probably answer this question better than I can. But what's clear is this: file sync market is a hugely growing market. In 2013, Gartner estimated it to be a $5 billion market, which, if you think about it, is pretty crazy because in 2008, Dropbox didn't exist, SkyDrive didn't exist. Really, in 2007 and 2008, this was a $0 market. Right? This market didn't exist. So in less than 5 years, it's turned into a $5 billion market. And in the same article I'm referencing here, it estimates in 5 years it's going to be north of a $20 billion market. And the question becomes, as an MSP, how are you capturing revenue from this market? Right? And think about all the different use cases and all the different vertical-specific opportunities. Most of you on the phone work with law firms or medical firms or architecture firms. These are just some examples. Right? Most of these types of businesses deal with very large files. They have very distributed offices. They have people out on the road that need access to their data on the airplane, in the car, on their mobile devices. How are they accessing that data in a secure and a compliant way? And who's managing it for them? Who's managing that for them? Right? It's one thing if you're a 20,000 user, Fortune 500 company, you probably have a pretty extensive internal IT department. But what about the small and the medium business, right? And then the profits, right? eFolder recognized that Anchor's pricing model allowed the service provider to make a lot of money. If you're paying Anchor $6 to $8 a month per user, and you're charging your customers $15 to $20, markups can easily exceed 3x per user, right? And as you scale, the way our pricing model is built is you get, volume discounts. So we reward partners as they go out and sell our services more. And we have a whole post-sales team to facilitate that sell-through and really turn this into another recurring revenue stream for your business. And because Anchor and eFolder are completely focused on growing our channel partners' business, there's no distractions. We're not taking inbound support calls from end users. That means when you call, you actually get a person on the phone, a support person to help you, right? You're not sitting in a call queue overseas somewhere. So these are all important, things that are really important to mention because, aside from the product itself, you're investing in the business. So that's about all I have. I would invite all of you who joined the call today to contact Anchor directly. You can contact us at sales@anchorworks.com. We can help you get into a free 21-day trial. We can do a deeper dive on a product demo. We can answer any technical questions that you have. We're super excited to be part of the eFolder family. I've been part of an acquisition in the past where, the parent company wasn't as focused on the channel and it wasn't received as well. And we were super sensitive about only, becoming, taking a deal with a company that was focused and had the same mission as Anchor did, which is to help, our MSP partners, our cloud service providers, and our VARs continue to grow their business and stay focused on the channel.
Okay.
So with that, I don't know, Ted, did you want to turn it over for Q&A?
Yeah. So I would leave that slide up. And Bryan, the URL of the Anchor website is?
AnchorWorks.com.
Okay. So if another way to get the sales team to reach out to you to either schedule a live demo or to explore pricing or to get signed up for a free trial is there just use the Contact Us form on the AnchorWorks.com website. So everybody, keep the questions coming in. We have just under 15 minutes more time for questions, and there's a ton already in the queue, so we're going to do our best to answer them. Bryan, let's go back to a question around the file server enablement feature. This question comes from Jeff. It says, when you do file server enablement, does it sync up all the files back to the central Anchor server or just enable the files located on the shared server? If on the server, do the changed bits only keep in the Anchor server? I mean, basically, explain how the file server enablement feature syncs to users and their local machines and devices, I guess.
Yeah, sure, no problem. I mean, file server enablement is replicating the data from a local file server into the cloud. And so the idea is you have your security permissions on your local file server, and your customers are used to using their map drives when they're in the office to share network resources. Well, we wanted to use policies that are very similar to those NTFS share rights in the cloud, but now the data sitting in the cloud, your customers have more ability to access their data and collaborate on data changes when they're off of the network. So you're installing our agent on the file server, and you're replicating a subset of the data, right? You're not replicating everything on the file server, just the data that you want to give certain groups of users or certain users access to when they're not on the network, sort of getting rid of the need for VPN. And if they make a change to a file on their home computer, it's going to immediately make that change not just on the cloud, but that will replicate down to the local file server in real time, right? So everything is continuously synced to each other.
And this is Kevin here. It could be a private cloud or a customer cloud. So
That's right. That's right. And that's a good point, Kevin. I mean, it's important to mention that when we say cloud, a cloud can be hosted by eFolder, a cloud could be hosted by you, right? Anchor has those two different models, private cloud or public cloud.
Okay, great. And then there's some questions about actually how mobile clients, specifically tablets and mobile phones work. And it says, Norbert's question is, for iPad and iPhone, will the file be downloaded to the device? This can be a problem with large files.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, mobile apps like our Android app and our iOS app work differently than our agents that run on like a PC or a MacBook, right? By default, the data is just browsable, meaning the file's not propagating down to the phone's hard drive, right? Like the person who asked the question already points out. I mean, phones don't have hundreds and hundreds of gigs of hard drive space, right? So By default, the data is just browsable on the app. Now, you can select any file you want on the app for offline viewing by saving it as a favorites. When you do that, the file is taken and it's actually stored on the hard drive, so you can have access to that data if you're offline. But generally speaking, by default, the data isn't going to actually consume hard drive space on the mobile device.
Okay, great. And then a question from David. To share a file through Outlook, does it already have to be in a synced folder, or can I choose any file on the fly and have it automatically sync to some folder in Anchor?
That's a good question. So today, the way the Outlook plugin works is the data has to already exist in the cloud. It doesn't necessarily have to be in your file sync folder, but it has to exist in the cloud, meaning you can't just choose a random file from your My Documents directory and ship it, right? That is a feature enhancement, though, that is coming out in one of our future releases this year, where you'll actually be able to attach any file on the local machine or in the cloud via the Outlook plugin.
Okay. And this is a question, I guess, for either of you. I mean, there's a couple questions about HIPAA compliance. Can you guys elaborate on the combined solutions HIPAA compliance posture?
Sure, this is Kevin. I'll take this. So eFolder's been working with 2 different HIPAA auditors to make sure that we're fully ready for the HIPAA omnibus regulations that changed at the beginning of this year. So we'll be signing HIPAA business associate agreements with partners by the deadline. And, eFolder services are approved, in medical environments. We'll have guidance documents to help you make sure you know how to implement them. There's a variety of interesting details that we don't have time to go into regarding electronic medical records and EPHI and what you need to do to have a completely secure solution. We've been very aware of these issues and working to make sure that partners who need HIPAA compliance will be able to use our services in those environments.
Okay. And I guess kind of a related question because it bears on encryption. So there's a couple of encryption questions, but Trey asked the most detailed one. He says, encryption. Right now there's only one encryption key installed on the server, no encryption done on the client, so the product isn't different from others like Dropbox, correct? And so
I think the key difference to that is, there is actually a per encryption key used for each top-level folder, and then there's a master encryption key for all of those other keys. If the customer is worried about, hey, I don't have my own private encryption key, what they do is you just install a private cloud instance of Anchor for that customer, and then that data is living right there within their boundaries with an encryption key that they choose. To get a lot of the feature-rich sharing functionality, it's best to let the server manage the encryption key in a cloud solution, and so we let you have that trade-off. There's very careful security procedures around how the encryption keys are managed in our cloud, but if that's not acceptable, because Anchor's flexible, you can deploy a private cloud instance, as the partner or on the customer's site.
Okay, great. So there's a bunch of questions around pricing, and I think, Bryan, rather than go through a detailed rate card, can you talk just a little bit about give a high-level overview of how the Anchor pricing works, and clarify that how current eFolder partners can get a copy of the pricing, get a demo, get a free trial account.
Yeah, sure. I mean, our pricing, we are strong believers in getting away from the nickel and diming kind of scenario where you've got a million add-ons and all these different SKUs to worry about. Anchor pricing is generally pretty simple. We do have 2 different basic pricing models that we sell. Again, 2 different licensing models, because about 70% of our partners go with our SaaS model, where they want to actually they want us to host the data for them because they don't want to manage the infrastructure or the overhead there that's associated with it. Other MSPs prefer our private cloud model because they already have services they're hosting for their customers. They may be renting data center space, or maybe they even own their own data centers. And sometimes the private cloud version makes more sense. Or like Kevin was alluding to, sometimes you have customers like the banks or other entities that are really worried about security and they want to host their own instance of the cloud themselves. So you run into all those scenarios. In terms of the pricing model, we sell user packs, and the great thing about the user packs is that they are flexible. If you buy a 25 user pack from Anchor, you can manage 5 customers with 5 users each. You don't have to, it's not per domain pricing. It's not per customer pricing. We sell a certain amount of users to the MSP who can then take those users and distribute them across their customer base however they like. We also sell a certain amount of storage with each user package, so you can distribute the storage across customers however you like. And typically, with our new, we used to offer about $40 gigs per user as part of our model, but that's going to be closer to 100 gigs per user with eFolder. And like I said, we're more than doubling the storage we offer as part of this acquisition, which is only going to help our partners make more money and make it easier for you to sell the service. And in terms of getting in touch with our sales team, again, the easiest way to do that is to use the sales@anchorworks.com. We will get in touch with you. Happy to provide you with a free 21-day trial. The trial is fully featured, comes with unlimited users, so it really gives you the ability to go out there and start not just testing the software internally, but giving it to some customers and letting them try it out. And we can cover the pricing model and go over the rate card, more in detail on a one-on-one basis engagement with our sales team. So we're happy to go over that, after the call.
Okay, and this may be one that Kevin may want to take. This is from Crystal. She says, I'm an Anchor partner but not an eFolder partner. Now that the two are one, does our existing partner status now open us up to eFolder services? And, will there be any changes, pricing changes to the Anchor offering? I think we've already covered that part, but so just can you talk a little bit about the other eFolder services that are available to Anchor partners?
Sure. So yeah, all Anchor partners are quite welcome to come into the big eFolder partner program itself. There's no additional requirements, and so there's other services. You would just need to sign a contract addendum to gain access to the other services. eFolder doesn't have long-term contracts or commitments. It's a 30-day out, so we've got our BDR business continuity services. And our file-level backup services that complement Anchor, email security, soon email continuity. So we can get you in touch with the right person in eFolder to explore your requirements in depth. Make sure it's right for you, and help you deploy it and sell it. We're very happy to get started with that.
Okay. I think with just 2 minutes left to go here. Kevin, why don't you close us out, or Bryan? We really don't have any more time for any additional questions. So.
Sure. Well, I'll let Kevin say the final word. I just wanted to say, again, the Anchor team here is extremely excited to be working with eFolder and excited about this. And I think all of our partners are receiving it really well because they realize that not only are they going to have more resources to help them go sell the Anchor service, now they have a bunch of other products that complement Anchor that they can go buy as well.
Yep. So this is Kevin here. We're very excited to have the Anchor team join us. We think there's some incredible synergies between our products. Excellent alignment with how our companies operate. And what our values are. And we believe that there's huge potential for our IP combined with their IP, forming unified data protection and business continuity service that's easy to consume for partners. And so we realize there's a lot more questions you've got. We're happy to talk to you individually and answer any of all of your questions. We think that at the end of the day, we want to make sure this is a win for partners most of all. And if you have any concerns at all, feel free to contact me or Bryan directly. We'll be happy to discuss all of your concerns in detail. So.
Okay, with that, thank you everybody for making time for today's eFolder and Anchor acquisition announcement presentation and briefing for partners. And we look forward to, for anyone who's interested, seeing you on a demo shortly to get you started with the Anchor product. Thanks a lot for joining us today. Take care.
Take care, everyone. Bye.